Have you ever felt like life is slipping through your fingers? Like no matter how hard you try, chaos always finds a way in? I want to tell you a secret, a simple rule so small, yet so powerful, it can make your life feel steady, controlled, and even peaceful, no matter what storms come your way. And the best part? You already have the power to use it. The first key point is that life doesn't wait for us to feel ready. We think we need a perfect plan, the ideal moment, or a flawless strategy before we can act. But the truth is, waiting for that imagined ready is exactly how time slips through our fingers. Control begins not with grand gestures, but with a single deliberate choice. One step taken clearly, without hesitation, without overthinking. Imagine standing at the edge of a calm river, staring at the water, unsure if it's safe to wade in. Each moment of indecision adds distance between you and where you are meant to be. One small step, just one, can carry more weight than weeks of planning ever could. When we focus only on the next choice, the world shrinks in a surprising way. Problems feel less like mountains and more like stones we can move one at a time. The mind, which often becomes tangled in what ifs and regrets, starts to breathe. Instead of being overwhelmed by the infinite possibilities of life, you gain a quiet certainty. I can handle this step. I can act here. One choice leads to the next, and suddenly, the chaos that once felt insurmountable begins to feel navigable. It's not about controlling everything, it's about mastering the space immediately in front of you. There is an invisible power in this approach because it takes the weight off your shoulders. When you try to control everything at once, life feels like a storm you cannot survive. But when you concentrate on the next choice, a sense of calm emerges. Think of a painter with a blank canvas, unsure of the final masterpiece. She doesn't try to paint the entire scene at once. She lays one stroke, then the next, and gradually the picture comes alive. Life in its complexity responds the same way. The next choice is your brush, and clarity comes when you decide to move it deliberately. This focus also exposes the truth about procrastination, that subtle thief of our lives. So often we wait for the right time, because we fear making the wrong decision, but the wrong choice is rarely permanent. By acting one choice at a time, we learn to course correct in real time. Life isn't a test we can fail, it's a conversation we can have with ourselves, moment by moment. Each choice teaches us what works, what doesn't, and most importantly, what we are capable of. This rhythm, small yet steady, becomes a quiet mastery over circumstances we once thought uncontrollable. Our emotions are deeply tied to this principle. Anxiety often grows when we imagine the full scope of a problem rather than the immediate action we can take. Worry is a projection into a future we cannot fully shape. But when we redirect our attention to the next step, the mind naturally settles. One decision, consciously made, breaks the loop of fear and opens a space for presence. Like a tightrope walker, focusing on the next step rather than the ground below, control emerges in the act of careful, attentive movement. Even our relationships respond to this principle. So much tension in life arises when we attempt to fix everything at once, our friends, family, colleagues, and ourselves. But focusing on the next choice allows for clarity in interactions. We can choose to listen, to speak, to act kindly, or to set a boundary in a single moment without feeling responsible for the entire trajectory of every connection. One thoughtful choice ripples outward, creating influence without pressure. In this way, life becomes a series of intentional gestures rather than a chaotic scramble. Perhaps the most profound shift is internal. When you make one choice at a time, you begin to trust yourself again. You realize that your instincts, once clouded by doubt, can guide you reliably when you focus narrowly and act decisively. Each small victory, each conscious decision, builds an invisible scaffolding of confidence that no external circumstance can topple. Life may still be unpredictable, but within you exists a constant, your ability to choose. That single, deliberate act The courage to move forward when everything feels uncertain is the heartbeat of control. Step by step, the world opens, choices compound, lessons accumulate, and the life that once felt out of reach begins to take shape in front of you. You see now that the simple act of deciding, of acting clearly and intentionally in the next moment, is not trivial. It is the foundation of everything: freedom, clarity, peace, and strength. And while it may seem small, it carries within it the quiet power to turn the current of your life in ways you never imagined. The second key point is that time is the currency of life, and yet so many of us spend it as if it were endless. We wake up to alarms, move through the motions, and let hours slip quietly by while our minds chase distractions, obligations, and worries that never seem to end. Most of us don't realize how much power we surrender simply by not claiming the hours that belong to us. Each moment is a sea, choice, whether we notice it or not. And when we start seeing time as something we actively steward rather than passively endure, the world begins to shift. Imagine holding a handful of sand. Every grain that falls through your fingers is gone forever. That is life. Protecting your time is not selfish, it is survival. When you truly own your time, you notice how often it has been hijacked by things that do not serve you. Social media, scrolling, endless emails, meetings that could have been messages, these are all invisible drains that accumulate quietly. It's not about being busy, it's about being intentional. The difference is subtle but enormous. 1 hour spent deliberately focused on growth, on connection, or on creativity is worth more than 10 hours spent reacting to someone else's agenda. Control comes not when you do everything, but when you decide what deserves your attention. Time, when claimed, gives life shape. There is also a deeper truth. The way you handle small fragments of time determines how you handle the big ones. A minute wasted when you could have read, reflected, or rested is a lesson in subtle surrender. A few minutes of scattered attention each day grows into hours, weeks, and months of missed opportunity. By treating every slice of time with respect, you build a habit of mindfulness and precision that seeps into all areas of life. Think of it like tending a garden. Every moment you water deliberately, remove weeds and plant seeds, the harvest comes nat. Really, control over time begins in these small, unseen acts. Owning your time also means creating boundaries, which requires courage and clarity. It means telling someone not now when your energy is needed elsewhere. It means closing a tab, turning off a notification, or saying no to something that competes with your priorities. This is not about avoidance, it is about creating space for what truly matters. Every boundary drawn is a declaration: my time is valuable and I will not surrender it blindly. When you practice this consistently, life responds by giving you more freedom than you ever expected, simply because you honor the hours you are given. Time, once owned, also brings a sense of presence that is often missing in our lives. Most people live either in the past, replaying regrets and mistakes, or in the future, anxious about what might come. But when you protect your moments, you naturally inhabit them fully. Eating a meal, walking outside, reading a paragraph, all of it becomes rich because your mind is there, not elsewhere. This presence is the foundation of control. You cannot steer a life you are not actually inside of. By anchoring yourself in each moment, time stops being a thief and becomes a companion, guiding you steadily forward. There is a freedom in this that many overlook. When you stop allowing time to be stolen, you begin to see the choices you can make with it. You realize that work can be focused instead of frantic, rest can be restorative instead of restless, and creativity can flow without being interrupted by endless distractions. You see the difference between doing something and truly living it. Each day becomes a series of deliberate acts instead of a chain of reactions. Life expands because your attention, your energy, your presence are now yours to command, not borrowed or lost. Perhaps the most profound effect of owning your time is the confidence it builds in your own agency. When you decide how to spend each hour, you reclaim the narrative of your life. You see that you are not merely a passenger being tossed by circumstance, you are a navigator, and every minute is a rudder that shapes your course. Even the smallest decision, choosing to write, to move, to think, echoes through your day, your week, your life. The more consciously you steward your time, the less it controls you, and the more your life feels steady, purposeful, and deeply under your hand. The third key point is that learning to say no is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect you can practice. It feels simple, almost obvious, yet so few of us truly embrace it. We spend our lives agreeing, complying, and bending to the expectations of others as if saying yes to every demand somehow proves our worth. But every yes we give to something that does not serve us is a silent theft of our energy, our focus, our freedom. Saying no is not rejection, it is a declaration of priority. It is saying, I honor my life enough to choose where my attention on goes. When we hesitate to say no, it's often fear that holds us captive. The fear of disappointing, of appearing selfish, of missing out on connection. Yet the truth is that saying yes to everything guarantees exhaustion, scattered attention, and a quiet resentment that seeps into every corner of our existence. Imagine a cup being poured into endlessly. No matter how much comes in, it can never overflow unless we let some out. Each no is a release valve that preserves space for what is meaningful, for what fuels our growth, our joy, our clarity. Saying no also trains our instincts. Life constantly tests our boundaries, offering invitations that seem urgent, relationships that seem essential, tasks that seem unavoidable. When we practice discerning where to invest our yes, we sharpen our judgment. The power of this is subtle but immense. We no longer drift. We no longer react to every impulse, every message, every expectation that comes our way. Instead, we act intentionally. Every time we say no thoughtfully, we build a muscle that protects our attention, our energy, and our vision. There is a quiet liberation in recognizing that not every request deserves your yes. Most of what competes for your time is noise, not signal. Friends who pull you into unnecessary drama, work that distracts from meaningful contribution, social obligations that drain rather than connect. These are all opportunities to practice this discipline. Saying no does not push people away, it allows you to engage or fully with what truly matters. By refusing the non-essential, we create space for creativity, reflection, and deep connection that would otherwise be impossible. This principle also transforms your inner dialogue. So often we fear that saying no makes us rigid or unkind. But the truth is that boundaries bring clarity, and clarity breeds kindness. When we say no to what does not matter, we can say yes to what does, with our full presence, energy, and attention. Imagine a candle. If it is burning to light every corner, it burns out quickly. But if it is protected and focused, it can shine steadily, illuminating fully. Boundaries preserve the flame, and our ability to shine in life grows exponentially. The practice of saying no also reveals the illusions we live under about control and obligation. We think we are responsible for other people's happiness, for every problem, for every need that crosses our path. But in truth, our responsibility begins with ourselves. By protecting our yes, we take care of the source of our energy, our clarity, and our integrity. When we operate from a full cup, we can contribute more meaningfully. Saying no is not denial, it is stewardship. It is the conscious act of managing our life as carefully as a gardener tends each plant, allowing growth where it is nurtured and pruning what hinders. Finally, learning to say no deepens our sense of purpose. Every yes becomes a deliberate choice, a statement about what we value most. Life becomes less a youth reaction and more about intention. Each decision carries weight because it is rooted in conscious alignment with our priorities. This discipline does not make life rigid or joyless, it makes it deliberate, measured, and powerful. The more we embrace the art of no, the more we discover that freedom is not the absence of obligations, but the mastery of choice, the quiet authority over our own life, energy, and direction. The fourth key point is that small, consistent habits hold more power than rare bursts of effort. We imagine that life changes through massive, dramatic actions, as if success or control is a sudden lightning strike. But in reality, it is the quiet, repeated actions, the small choices we make daily that shape the trajectory of our lives. 1 minute spent intentionally can outweigh hours of distracted effort. Think of a river carving a canyon over centuries. No single drop makes the canyon, yet together persistence reshapes the earth. Habits are the water, patient and steady, shaping our life quietly but inexorably. Habits are not about perfection, they are about alignment. It doesn't matter if you stumble, if you miss a day, or if the results are invisible at first. What matters is showing up repeatedly, aligning your actions with the life you want to live. Each act of discipline is like planting a seed in soil that may seem barren, yet beneath the surface, roots are spreading. One conscious choice builds momentum, and another builds on top of it, until suddenly you realize that life has shifted. Not because of a single monumental effort, but because of the quiet accumulation of small, thoughtful acts. There is also a freedom in small habits because they are manageable, approachable, and forgiving. We are often paralyzed by the thought of doing something enormous, and we delay, procrastinate, or avoid entirely. A habit, by contrast, asks only for presence, not perfection. 5 minutes of reflection, 10 minutes of exercise, or a single paragraph written each day may seem insignificant in isolation, but when repeated consistently, they become the invisible scaffolding that supports everything else. Life under control is not built in moments of inspiration, it is built in the small, persistent routines we commit to, even when no one is watching. Habits also shape identity. Each action sends a message to your mind about who you are and what you are capable of. When you show up for yourself consistently, even in ways that feel minor, you begin to see yourself differently. A person who chooses clarity over distraction, discipline over indulgence, attention over chaos. This person emerges not because of rare heroic moments, but because of the repeated intentional steps taken day after day. Your habits sculpt your self-image, and your self-image in turn guides your choices. The quiet accumulation of habits also teaches patience and perspective. We live in a world that celebrates instant results, but true mastery is invisible in the moment. Just as a tree takes years to grow and bear fruit, habits work beneath the surface before their effects are visible. There is profound reassurance in this. Life is responding to your consistent efforts, even when it seems silent. Each repetition is a deposit into an account that compounds, building reserves of skill, resilience, and clarity that will carry you forward when challenges arrive. Habits also create leverage in life. When basic actions become automatic, they free mental space for focus, creativity, and deeper work. A morning routine, a reflective practice, or a small exercise of discipline may feel trivial at first, yet over time these habits reduce friction, enhance energy, and amplify your capacity to act decisively. The small acts are the scaffolding that allow larger decisions and actions to become possible without collapse. It is in this way that control is multiplied, not through heroic effort, but through the quiet architecture of repeated choice. Finally, small habits remind us that we are not powerless. Life often feels chaotic because we fixate on what is beyond our reach, the uncontrollable circumstances, the demands of others, the unpredictability of the future. Habits anchor us in what we can control, our actions, our attention, our routines. Each small, deliberate choice is a signal to the world and to ourselves that we matter, that we are capable, that we are building something meaningful from the ground up. Over time, these tiny, consistent ACTs become a force that guides our days, shapes our character, and ultimately steers our life towards steadiness, clarity, and control. The fifth key point is that a clear mind is the foundation of control, and yet most of us carry a clutter we don't even notice. Thoughts pile up like unread letters in a drawer, obligations stack like teetering boxes in a hallway, and worries echo like background noise that never stops. We mistake this constant mental chatter for reality, believing that our life is chaotic because the world is chaotic. But the truth is, clarity is not about changing the world. It's about ordering the space inside you, deciding which thoughts deserve attention and which can be set aside. It's the difference between standing in a storm and standing at the edge of a storm, calm, observing, and steady. When your mind is cluttered, even small tasks feel heavy and decisions become exhausting. Anxiety grows not because of what is happening, but because of the sheer volume of thoughts we carry alongside it. Clearing the mind doesn't require hours of meditation or retreat. It begins with awareness, noticing what is present, and letting go of what is unnecessary. Imagine a window covered in layers of dust. The sunlight is there, waiting, but only a sweep of care allows it to shine through. Each thought released is like brushing away a layer, letting your inner light illuminate the choices, opportunities, and possibilities that were always available. Clarity also allows you to see patterns that chaos hides. When the mind is cluttered, problems appear larger than they are, challenges seem unsolvable, and the path forward is obscured. But when you simplify your thinking, life unfolds with surprising logic. You notice connections, see the consequences of actions, and recognize where energy is wasted. It is like standing on a hill and seeing a river clearly tracing its course through a forest that once seemed impenetrable. A clear mind is not the absence of challenge, but the ability to navigate it with confidence, without being blinded by noise or distraction. The practice of keeping a clear mind is, in essence, an exercise in choice. You decide which thoughts, worries, and voices deserve space and which do not. You allow yourself to reflect instead of react, to consider instead of be consumed. Even simple acts, writing down what is pressing, letting go of what cannot be solved now, or consciously focusing on one task at a time, serve as anchors in the storm. Each decision to prioritize clarity over chaos is a signal to yourself that you are capable of steering your own life, rather than being carried by the currents of endless distractions. A clear mind also strengthens emotional resilience. When we are overwhelmed, our feelings become tangled with thoughts, amplifying fear, frustration, and self-doubt. Clarity separates the signal from the noise. It allows you to see a situation as it is, without the exaggeration of anxiety or the distortion of assumptions. It is the difference between reacting impulsively and responding thoughtfully. Like a lens being cleaned, clarity sharpens perception, and what once seemed impossible or confusing suddenly becomes manageable. You begin to trust your judgment, knowing that it is not clouded by unnecessary clutter. There is also a profound sense of freedom in a clear mind. When your thoughts are organized and your attention is intentional, you are no longer a prisoner to mental chaos. Decisions become lighter, priorities more visible, and your energy is spent where it matters. Imagine a backpack filled with stones you don't need to carry. Every step is harder. When you take out what is unnecessary, every movement is lighter, every choice easier, and life feels larger, more spacious, and more under your control. Freedom is not escaping responsibility. It is having the mental space to handle it with grace. Finally, clarity cultivates presence. Life is not lived in lists, worries, or endless rehearsals of the future. It is lived in the moments we inhabit fully. When the mind is clear, you notice what is happening around you, you hear conversations deeply, you feel experiences fully, and you act intentionally rather than reactively. The present is no longer a blur of obligations and distractions. It is a place of power, a space where control is tangible, because your mind finally is free enough to move deliberately. Each moment of clarity is a step toward mastery over your own life. A quiet authority that no external circumstance can take away. The sixth key point is that how you respond to life determines the degree of control you truly have, far more than the events themselves. Life will inevitably throw challenges at you, some small, some massive, some that seem to appear out of nowhere. The first instinct is often to react, to lash out, to panic, to feel powerless. But reaction is the surrender of choice, the giving away of your power to circumstances beyond your control. Responding, on the other hand, is conscious, deliberate, and rooted in presence. It is the quiet act of reclaiming your authority over your own life, even in the midst of uncertainty. When you pause before responding, you create a space where clarity can enter. This pause is not hesitation or weakness, it is a shield. In that moment, you separate yourself from the impulse to act on raw emotion, and instead observe, consider, and choose the action that aligns with your values. Imagine a sculptor before a block of marble. Rushing will ruin the piece, but careful, intentional strikes bring the vision to life. Life is your marble, and your response is the deliberate chisel that shapes it, rather than letting the chaos shape you. The power of responding lies in its ability to break cycles of regret and reaction. When we react automatically, we are at the mercy of old patterns, anger, fear, frustration, or avoidance that repeat like a song stuck on the same note. Responding interrupts the pattern. It allows a new rhythm to emerge, one that is conscious and intentional. Each time you choose your response instead of reacting, you build a muscle of self-mastery, a quiet resilience that grows stronger with each trial, each mistake, each unexpected turn of events. Responding also trains patience, which is often overlooked in our fast-paced world. Life rarely unfolds exactly as we imagine, and the unexpected will test both patience and perspective. The choice to respond calmly requires you to slow down your mind and your emotions, to step outside the immediate rush of impulse. It is like planting a seed in soil. You cannot force it to grow, but with attention, care, and time, it flourishes. In the same way, measured responses cultivate a life that is steady, deliberate, and increasingly under your control. Another dimension of responding is emotional freedom. When you react, you give external events the power to dictate your inner state. A careless word, a sudden setback, or a frustrating delay can consume your thoughts and mood. But when you respond consciously, you reclaim ownership of your emotional landscape. You realize that no one can make you feel anything without your consent, and the storm outside cannot dictate the calm inside. Like a tree bending in the wind but not breaking, your responses shape a resilient inner structure that endures regardless of the turbulence around you. Responding also strengthens relationships because it allows you to act from awareness rather than impulse. Conflict, miscommunication, and tension often escalate when we react without thinking. But responding, pausing, listening, considering, and then acting opens space for understanding, empathy, and resolution. It is not passive, it is a deliberate force that transforms how you interact with the world. Each thoughtful response reinforces your presence, demonstrates your integrity, and shows that you are not a puppet of circumstance but an agent of intention and influence. Finally, responding is the essence of mastery over life itself. You will never control every situation, every person, every outcome. That is impossible. But you can control your response. This simple truth is revolutionary because it returns power where it belongs, inside you. Every choice to respond consciously, even when it is difficult, even when emotions run high, builds an unshakable sense of agency. Life may still be unpredictable, but the way you meet it, the decisions you make in those moments of choice, becomes your compass, your anchor, and your proof that control is not about stopping the storm. It is about learning to navigate it with quiet authority. The seventh key point is that focusing on what you can influence is the quiet cornerstone of control, even when the world around you feels chaotic and unpredictable. So much of our energy is wasted on things beyond our reach: other people's choices, random events, the shifting tides of circumstance. We spend hours, days, even years trying to push against forces that are impossible to move, only to end up exhausted, frustrated, and disillusioned. But there is immense power in shifting attention inward, to the things you can affect, and letting go of the rest. It is like steering a boat. You cannot command the current or the wind, but you can adjust the rudder, trim the sails, and chart a course through the waters. When you focus on influence, clarity naturally follows. Life no longer feels like an endless battlefield where every direction is a trap. Instead, it becomes a landscape where your choices matter, where your actions carry weight, and where your efforts build momentum rather than dissipate into chaos. You start to see where your energy produces real change and where it only fuels anxiety and stress. This shift is subtle but profound. It allows you to reclaim time, attention, and mental space that were previously stolen by the illusion of control over the uncontrollable. Attention itself becomes a form of power. What you focus on grows stronger in your life. If your mind dwells on what you cannot influence, you become trapped in frustration and fear, like a gardener watering stones instead of soil. But when you direct focus toward what is within reach, your thoughts, your actions, your decisions, your habits, you cultivate growth, results, and progress. Small choices accumulate, ripple outward, and slowly reshape the reality around you, even when the larger world remains unpredictable. Influence may be subtle, but it is tangible, and it compounds over time. This principle also brings peace. When we obsess over what cannot be controlled, we create a storm inside ourselves. Anxiety, regret, and resentment thrive on this illusion of responsibility for the unchangeable. Focusing on influence is like stepping into calm waters after being swept along by rapids. You are no longer a victim of circumstance, but an active participant in what matters. The storm may still rage, but you are anchored, moving with intention rather than being tossed by its waves. It is also a lesson in humility and wisdom. We are not omnipotent, and pretending to be only leads to exhaustion and despair. Accepting what is beyond reach does not mean surrender. It means choosing where to invest your finite energy with precision and care. Like a sculptor chipping away at marble, you do not try to move the mountain at once. You work where your hands can touch, slowly revealing the form hidden within. Each act of focus, each area of influence claimed, becomes a small masterpiece of control, a tangible expression of intentional life. Focusing on influence cultivates resilience. Life will still throw challenges, disruptions, and chaos at you, but when your attention is rooted in what you can affect, those challenges become navigable rather than overwhelming. You learn to bend without breaking, to act without overextending, and to find opportunity where others see only limitation. Influence turns obstacles into tools, a conversation into understanding, a failure into insight, a setback into strategy. You realize that power does not lie in controlling everything, but in mastering what is already within your hands. Finally, focusing on what you can influence restores a sense of purpose and direction. Life stops being a series of reactive gestures and becomes a series of deliberate steps. You begin to measure progress not by external validation or outcomes you cannot guarantee, but by the integrity, effort, and alignment of your actions. Each choice, each intentional act becomes evidence that you are leading your life rather than drifting in it. Control is no longer a vague hope or a fantasy. It is real, measurable, and grounded in the realm of what you can change starting here, starting now. When you step back and look at life through this lens, you begin to see a quiet truth. Control is never about forcing the world to bend to your will. It is about tending to your own mind, your own choices, your own energy, and letting everything else find its place. Each step you take with awareness, Each habit you nurture, each boundary you protect, each response you pause to consider is a thread in the fabric of your life. They are small, subtle, and often invisible, yet together they create a strength that no circumstance can take from you. Life may still be unpredictable, and challenges will still arrive, but there is a difference now. You are rooted. You feel the steadiness of knowing that even in uncertainty, there is a part of life that belongs entirely to you. The moments you inhabit, the choices you make, the way you guard your mind and direct your focus, these are yours, unshakable and real. And when you honor them, you discover a rhythm and a clarity that guides you forward quietly yet powerfully. You carry within yourself a measure of calm that is not dependent on outcomes, praise, or perfection. It is the calm of someone who has learned to navigate the world with deliberate steps, who knows that life's currents may bend, but cannot break the foundation of presence, intention, and inner clarity. This calm is not empty. It is full of quiet confidence, of a trust in your own capacity to act thoughtfully and live deliberately. And with that trust comes a subtle, persistent strength, the kind that does not shout or demand attention, but that is felt deeply. It is the strength to focus when distractions call, to pause when emotions surge, to say no when it matters, and to respond with clarity when life pushes you in every direction. It is a strength that is built, not in the grand moments, but in the repeated practice of living intentionally, choice by choice, moment by moment. This is the life that begins when control is understood not as domination over the world, but as mastery over yourself. The small decisions, the steady habits, the calm awareness, the boundaries, the deliberate responses, they do not make life predictable, but they make it navigable. They create a space where you can move with confidence, where your presence matters, and where your energy flows toward what is meaningful rather than lost to the endless pull of circumstance. And in that space, something shifts. The noise of the world softens, and you find clarity. Your mind feels lighter, your steps steadier, your focus sharper. The challenges do not vanish, but they no longer define you. You carry a sense of quiet authority over your own life, a recognition that the life you live is composed of your own attention, choices, and care. It is steady, resilient, and alive with possibility, anchored not in what happens outside, but in the ground you claim within. So hold this quietly, without fanfare, without demand. Let it settle in your mind like a steady river under the surface of the day. Life will continue in its unpredictable way, yet you now have a presence, a rhythm, and a clarity that can weather it. And in that, you discover the simplest, deepest truth. The life you seek, the control you long for, is always within reach when you choose it for yourself, one deliberate moment at a time.